Thank you for coming, everyone. It's really nice to see you all here. I just want to continue where Julian left off and let you know that I've had a long career in finance. Everything from banking and financial planning, a very long and happy and successful career. And I semi-retired from that because I really have a passion for teaching all of the stuff that I learned. And primarily, my career when I was doing financial planning with my clients was about taking the mystery out of money, because people were overwhelmed by terminology and things that they didn't understand. So my colleague and I, Richard Hobbs and I, created a workshop on financial planning, and also this is one of the components out of that workshop. So I really hope that what you benefit from this primarily is that you'll learn a strategy, how to strategize with your money and making your financial decisions a lot easier. Now, today, I'm going to introduce to you, can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great, forgot to ask. First thing we're going to look at are the 6 disciplines of financial planning. Now, most people think that financial planning is simply that statement that you take back from your broker or your investments, and you look at that bottom line and that's financial planning, whatever that bottom line tells you, but that's not the case. There are actually 6 areas in financial planning. The first of which, of course, the 4 piles of money. That's what we'll talk about next. And then the bottom line. So, the 6 disciplines. The first is investment management, as I was talking about a few minutes ago. With investment management, it really depends on your age, your stage of life, your personal circumstances, your risk tolerance zone. All of that comes into play when we're dealing with creating an investment plan, an investment strategy. So, a lot of things involved, and we're going to talk about several of those issues today. It's a very important key about what we're discussing today. Retirement planning. The one thing I want to say about retirement planning is that a good retirement is the reward for good planning. That's what good planning is heading toward. Risk management. Risk management is simply about insurance, which isn't such a simple subject after all. Insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, health insurance, long-term care, and then we have to deal with issues like, insuring the things that we own, our homes and our cars, etc. Lots of discussion around insurance, and we're going to touch on that subject today as well. Estate planning. Estate planning involves your wills, powers of attorney, representation agreements, making sure you have beneficiary designations on anything that you're allowed to have a beneficiary designation on, like your RRSPs and your insurance, for example. And also ownership, when you own large assets. Do you make those assets joint with your partner, or do you hold them in your own name? Those are the issues in estate planning that come up. Cash and debt management. Debt management. We've seen a crisis happen in the world in the last couple of years, and a lot of that has stemmed from improper debt management. And, for years I've been saying, yay, Canada, we're so stodgy and boring when it comes to our laws and rules around finances, and that's what saved our hide. I'm so proud of the way Canada manages the banking system. But debt management, it's really important to eliminate, if you can, any bad debt, hold good debt, reduce your interest that you're paying on your debt, and shelter it whenever you can. The cash management part of cash and debt management, to me, the key that I've always said to my clients is pay yourself first. 3 little words, but it means so much. And when you pay yourself first, you know, we never have a problem trying to decide, should I pay the mortgage this month? I wonder if I should pay the hydro bill. Nobody ever questions that. But people really question. They usually pay the bills, go out and spend, and if there's anything left over, then they'll save it. It should be the other way around. Put yourself at the top of that priority list of obligations and pay yourself first. Pay your bills and spend the rest. Then you don't have to wonder if there's going to be anything left over for you. You should be your priority. So I'm really strong on that. And the last discipline is tax management. And the next slide, we're going to talk more about tax management. Albert Einstein was quoted as saying, "The hardest thing in the world to understand is the income tax." So you're in good company if you have any questions about income tax. The biggest problem occurs when we're trying to build wealth. The biggest problem occurs not when you put the money aside, but when you take the money out. When and how you take the money out. Think about it. So many people, you know, in February, the news is full of, you know, interviews and ads about you've got to do your RSP. You've got to do your RSP. So oftentimes people just run off to the bank and bang, here's my money, put it in an RRSP. That isn't a strategy. And, you know, yes, your money's in the RSP, but there's so many other questions to ask about it. So, and one of the big ones is about a tax management question. So, what I'm talking about here, you know, when we're creating a strategy, how the money comes out, tax has a big, big, big part in how the money comes out and how the effect it has on your portfolio. I want to clarify a little bit of tax terminology. Before I go farther in the slide. Things like your marginal tax rate and your average tax rate. Maybe everybody in the room is clear on that, but I'm just going to do a little refresher, okay? As you know, as our income increases, our taxable income increases, we pay more and more tax. You're paying a lot more income tax if you're earning $100,000 than you will if you're earning $20,000. So it goes up in increments. Okay? So for example, if you're earning $60,000 a year, your marginal tax rate is 31%. But your average tax rate is 21%. What that means is that if you earn the next dollar over $60,000 will be taxed at a rate of 31%, but everything up to that point is only 21%. Is that clear? Okay, super. The reason that matters is that if you, for example, go back to the RRSP example, if you can make a $5,000 RSP contribution and your earned income is $65,000, your taxable income, I should say, you put that $5,000 in your RSP and you've saved more tax. You've brought yourself down to a lower marginal rate. All right? The first category I'm talking about here is the 100% taxable category. Now, that includes your income from your job. It includes interest that you earn on any kind of debt instrument. Now, a debt instrument is when you're lending your money to a person or an institution or a government. So, a Canada Savings Bond earns interest. A GIC, a Guaranteed Income Certificate at the bank, earns interest, etc., etc. So those are all loans. When you get an interest rate return on your money, that's because you've loaned your money to someone and they're making more money on it and paying you, guaranteeing your capital back and guaranteeing you some interest return. The other categories that are 100% taxable are your pension incomes and the income from your registered plans. Your RRSP becomes a RIF, etc. Okay, so all of that is 100% taxable. Another area that falls into that category is your net business income after all of your expenses and your net rental income, again, after expenses. And we're going to talk about those a little bit more after a while. So we're understanding that interest and income are 100% taxable, right? Next category that's becoming clear to us is dividends. Now, dividends originate from owning preferred shares in Canadian corporations. When a Canadian corporation earns income, they pay tax on it. But if you're a preferred shareholder in that corporation, they will also share that profit with you. However, it's not fair, is it? If they've already paid tax and then you have to pay tax, that's where the dividend tax credit comes up to neutralize that a little bit. So a dividend tax credit usually gives you about 27.5% tax credit against the actual dividend that you've earned. So there's a benefit to earning dividends is the point, a tax benefit. And the third area for today is capital gains. Welcome. Capital gains arise from owning something. If you own shares in corporations, if you own a property that's been paying you some sort of income, and then you sell that property or you sell those shares or you sell those mutual funds that own properties of one kind or another, that gain becomes taxable. Now, with a capital gain, you could hold on to something for 20 years and it's constantly going up and down in value. You never, ever, ever pay tax on that until the day that you sell it. That's a realized gain. The day that you sell it, it's realized. And it's the realized gain that you actually put in your pocket. Half of that gain is taxable. Not 100% of it like income, but only half of it is taxable. So that is the greatest tax advantaged as far as, what you're earning outside. Yes?
I thought your principal residence was capital gains tax-free.
That's right, yeah. I'm talking about properties that would have generated income.
That you're renting out.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Hold questions until the end, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Good point. Okay, so this leads us into our 4 piles of money. Now, the 4 piles consist of registered money, tax-free savings accounts, non-registered money, and insurance. Now, prior to thinking about what are you going to invest in, should I buy Bell shares or Royal Bank shares, or should I buy a GIC, rather than thinking about all of that, first you have to get a strategy and decide which pile that money is going into. That's really important. For example, where does interest go? If you're earning interest over here and capital gains over there from different sources of different investments, where do you put it? A really important question. And then when you understand and know these 4 piles, and you'll know what questions to ask. You'll make better choices in your investment strategy when you understand the tax implications and the benefits and the potential problems with some of these categories, with some of these piles. So if you take the 4 piles and you balance it perfectly, you'll have an ideal portfolio. And of course, the best time to start doing all of this is when you get your first paycheck. I've had just about every client who ever came to my office said, I wish somebody told me this a long time ago, you know. But that doesn't always happen. And you know what? It's never too late. It's never too late to rebalance and organize your portfolio in such a way that you're going to capitalize on all of this information. So it's rarely too late anyway. So the other thing I love about financial planning, I must tell you, is that it's multi-generational. And I was talking about, you know, when somebody gets their first paycheck, well, where do they learn that? It's really tough. They don't, you know, finance around the kitchen table doesn't happen a whole lot. And oftentimes, you know, we've seen our parents or our kids see us, you know, worrying about this and that when it comes to money. And what do you mean you want $20? Didn't I just give you $20 yesterday, and that sort of thing? That's often the kind of thing that our kids learn from us about money. So I have a real passion about getting this kind of information out to people. But multi-generational, and I've seen it, I love it when the kids get involved and they understand and they start doing their own savings and such. It makes such a big difference. So let's move to our first pile of money, and that's registered money. Now, I was talking a little bit before about registered money. Registered money is a government tax rule. So if long time ago, government decided, and particularly in more recent years, they don't really want to be in the retirement income business. They provide us with Canada Pension Plan, which we pay into, and old age security. But beyond that, they don't really want to be in that business. And you might have noticed, too, that a lot of companies, a lot of big companies, are backing away from the old-fashioned kinds, old-fashioned, excuse me, I don't mean that, but the original type of defined benefit pension plans. That's all changing and encouraging people to do their own. So in 1957, actually, RRSPs came about. And I don't know, but to me that seems pretty recent. But that's where it originated, with the government encouraging people to take care of their own retirement. So within the registered pile of money, we have RRSPs and RIFs and LIRAs and LIFs and RPPs and DCPPs. And but what that means, registered retirement savings plan, when you retire, that becomes a registered retirement income fund. So from savings to income, it's logical. LIRAs, locked-in retirement account, that's money that came from a pension somehow, or came from sometimes when our employer and we both contribute to a retirement savings plan. That's called a LIRA, a locked-in retirement account. That becomes a LIF, a life income fund. Registered pension plans, defined contribution and defined benefit pension plans are two different strategies. The defined benefit is the kind my dad has. And the defined benefit, that's when you know, based on the contributions over the years from you and your employer, you know what your pension's going to be, because they have a definition and a calculation of how that money is paid out. So that's a defined benefit. A lot of companies now are going to a defined contribution, because with a defined benefit, if the markets went up and down, somebody was going to be stuck with, you know, paying out amounts that maybe they couldn't afford. But with a defined contribution plan, it tells the employer and the employee how much they're going to contribute. And whatever that pot of money is at the end of the game, at the end of, you know, your working time, then you create a pension, usually through an annuity, to pay you your income through retirement. An annuity is an insurance product, and most pensions are based on annuities, but that's another subject for another time. Now, with RRSPs, because that's the most common, let's sort of stick with that. But with an RRSP, the rules are such that the government decides, you know, you're told how much you contribute. It's 18% of your earned income up to a maximum. Now, because you can carry forward unused amounts from previous years, and different factors come into play. If your employer's making some kind of a contribution to a plan, the best place to find out where that what that amount is on your last year's tax assessment form. So at the bottom of that tax assessment, it shows you your RRSP contribution room. Now, you can invest that money anywhere you want. It's simply a tax strategy. You can invest it in virtually any kind of investment. The government doesn't make as many restrictions on that as they used to. There used to be a really strong restriction on investing it outside of Canada. They've loosened that. Now, I like to think of an RRSP still as it's your money. And the best time to make an RRSP contribution is in the years of high tax. It saves you tax. Every dollar you put into an RRSP is not taxed in that year. And it accumulates over time. So you don't pay tax on it when it goes in. You don't pay tax on the growth while it's in the plan. The only time you pay tax is when it comes out. Now, I've had clients ask too, well, you know, people said it's just a rip-off and I shouldn't do that and I should just invest my money outside. Well, I've done the calculations and that doesn't make sense. Because the capital and all the growth are not taxed, it's going to grow a lot faster within the plan. And even if you do the dumbest thing in the world and cash the whole thing out on the day you retire, you're still going to be farther ahead than if you hadn't invested in the RRSP. Okay? Now, the other thing I started to say was that the best time to put money, an RRSP is a way to save tax in times of high tax, and it's a way to create income in times of low tax. And typically that time of low tax is at retirement. However, what if there was an emergency or something, or you decided to go back to school for a couple of years and the only money you had was in your RSP? Well, there's a time that you might want to take some of that RSP money out to replace some of your income. Realizing that you will be paying tax on it, but you can get at it, okay? Now, when you're retired and you've converted your RSP to a RIF and you're taking income out of that pool of money, if an emergency or an opportunity came along and all you had was all of your money in the RRSP, then for an emergency or an opportunity where you needed a lump sum of cash, you would have to go to the bank and borrow the money. Or if you wanted to use your own money, you could take a lump sum out, but it's going to have a big tax impact in that year. Right? So that's a problem, and a lot of people complained about it. So the solution was the tax-free savings account. The tax-free savings account just came into being last year, and with a tax-free savings account, you don't have to have any proof of income the way you do with an RRSP. With an RRSP, it's based on a percentage of your income, right? But with a tax-free savings account, there's no such problem. You can invest up to $5,000 in a year, and that is intended to go up a little bit every year, so that amount will be increasing. Now, if you have a spouse, if you have children over 18, each individual person can do a tax-free savings account. So it's a real opportunity for income splitting as well down the road. The other thing with tax-free savings accounts, again, you can invest them wherever you want, virtually wherever you want. And if you take, the growth is not taxed when it's in the plan. The money going in, of course, is after tax. It's not a deduction. But when the money is in there and growing, there's no tax on the growth, interest, income, or dividends or capital gains, and there's no tax on that growth when it comes out of the plan. So you're never paying tax on the growth. It's a huge benefit. Now, if you take a lump sum out, so say you've saved in your tax-free savings account for 5 years because you knew your car was going to go in 5 years and you wanted to buy a new car in 5 years. You take the money out of your tax-free savings account, you buy the car, and you save up again. If you had a lump sum somewhere that came along, you can reinvest that full amount that you took out for the car on top of the new contribution for that year. So it gets better and better. So it's becoming a really, really important investment vehicle for people. We see it as a really important part of your strategy. Excuse me. Now, when you've capitalized on your RRSPs and your TFSAs, then you're looking at your non-registered investments. With non-registered investments, you pay tax on the growth and the income as you earn it. So, when you're buying investments, whether they be stocks, bonds, mutual funds, as it brings out income and you get that in your pocket or leave it in the investment, even if you leave it in the investment, and I'm not talking about capital gains here, but interest and dividends, when it's in a non-registered investment, you pay tax on it in the year that it's earned. Now, business income and rental income, net of all of your expenses, that's another area that we would consider non-registered investments. Now, there are tax advantages, many tax benefits to having a business and having rental property, but those benefits those tax benefits offset the cost and the responsibilities you have for managing those assets. However, there's another way to do some sheltering, and not many people know about it. One of them, there are a number, but one in particular is called corporate class. Corporate class investing is another sort of shelter that you can register with the federal government. And with corporate class, again, the money is after tax, but the growth in it isn't taxed while you're earning it. And when the money comes out, the growth is treated as capital gains. And as you now know, capital gains are the most tax-preferred source of income. So corporate class is something, if you haven't heard of it before, how many people here have heard of corporate class? Ah, okay, a few. Good, thank you. But it really matters. It shelters the gains, and people in a high marginal tax rate, corporate class really allows you to choose the timing of when you take money out. Because when the money is in the corporate class, you might not want to hold one investment for 20 years, but if you sell it and buy something else, it's going to trigger a tax problem for you, but not in corporate class. You can move investments around within corporate class without paying tax on it. Now, our fourth pile is insurance. Now, in order to consider insurance, you have to have an insurance need. Okay? You have to have beneficiaries. There has to be a need for insurance, whether it's a personal need or a business need, because you pay for insurance. It's expensive to do, but there are responsibilities in our lives that we really need to use insurance. So now I just want to explain the difference between the different kinds of insurance. Term insurance is for you pay for term insurance for a specific amount of insurance for a specific amount of time. So as you can imagine, a 25-year-old is going to pay less for insurance than, say, a 50-year-old person will. So the insurance cost on term insurance goes up like a ladder, or a stairway, I guess, and you pay for that term insurance for a specific amount of time. So thinking of 25 and 30-year-olds, typically that's when, you know, they own a home and with a big mortgage and they really haven't started saving yet and they have children and all of that, a lot of responsibilities, and that's when the need for insurance is highest. And because term is the least expensive and it's a specific amount of time that they'll need it, that's a really good solution for that time in a person's life. Whole life insurance is the kind of insurance where you're paying for it for almost your whole life, and you are insured for your whole life. But as I was just saying, the cost of insurance, according to actuarial tables, the cost of insurance keeps going up. So in the early years, if you're paying a straight line cost for the insurance, and the insurance cost is really down here and goes up, this portion, if you can imagine my hand signals here, but this is a savings portion that's saved up. You're paying actually a lot more than it really costs for your insurance, and that savings portion is used in later years to cover the cost of insuring you when you're older. Now, I'm simplifying things for the matter of this presentation, but that's sort of the way it goes. So this savings portion really isn't available to you as cash, because in order to get at that cash surrender value, you either have to borrow against it and pay interest and pay it back, or not pay it back and it reduces your insurance, or you borrow against it, or you can cash out your policy and get the cash value from it. But there is a need for whole life insurance. You know, this is the insurance policy that you'll have long after your need for the term insurance is done. However, in the last number of years, and I really don't know how long ago it started, but segregated funds and universal life that you can see up here is sort of a hybrid between term and whole life insurance. These policies unbundle the savings portion from the insurance portion. And the reason they do that, there are a number of reasons. First of all, you can have some choices on how you invest that cash portion of the insurance policy. Excuse me. And so you can make investment decisions on it. Also, you can, the savings portion is not taxed. So compared to your non-registered investments, the savings portion within an insurance policy is not taxable up to certain limits. The other thing about the savings portion is that it's creditor proof. And that matters a lot, often to business people, you know, if they have a company or they have insurance concerns in that regard. So it's by and large, it's creditor proof if it's done properly. So with these policies, the cost too is sort of between the term and the whole life. And you can put more into the cash value than you're required to do. And that is purely about estate planning strategies. Very complicated, and again, it really depends on your own personal situation, but that's what financial planners are for, is to help you with those decisions. But these are significant estate planning tools. You know, we come to a point that we want to leave stuff to our families and our beneficiaries, and that's how we usually manage it. Now, the bottom line, pay yourself first was what I talked about earlier. Pay yourself first is the best thing we can do. And just that's really about living within our means as well and paying ourselves first. Now, know how the money comes out before you put it in. You don't want any nasty tax surprises when you're taking your money out of your investment. And now you know how to make your portfolio as tax efficient as possible. Now that you understand the 4 piles of money. Now you have a better understanding of your choices and your options with your investments. You can understand better how and when to take the money out of the investments in order to minimize the tax. Because the whole point of today's presentation is to teach you how to maximize your portfolio and how to make wiser choices with what you have. Now, I guess I've talked a lot faster than I expected to, but that'll just give us a bit more time for questions. I just want to show you this. This is my vision. And I've spoken to thousands of people, seriously, one-on-one, about their financial planning issues, their financial concerns. And I've internalized a lot about how people feel about that. Because it's our finances define us in so many ways. You know, and that transition from working life to retirement life is a big one. And the transition of a young person from going to school and learning how to make money to being out there and trying to figure out what to do with it. There are lots of different transitions. And then young people like my son and his wife just had a baby and a new house and all kinds of challenges and excitement and new things to think about. So I'm just very pleased to be able to share all of this with you today. And Julian's going to bring up our question session.
I'd like to open up the floor to some questions. We'll take about 20 minutes, so just feel free to put up your hand, and Patricia will acknowledge you. And perhaps, Patricia, if you could just offer up a sort of repeat of what the person says so everybody can hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can you explain the corporate class investment if you want? You have to register as a corporation with a government?
Okay. The question here in the front is about the corporate class, and the lady would like to know if you have to register as a corporation. No, you don't. You can be an individual. It's a tax strategy. It's a tax umbrella that the government gives us. So, yes, an individual can do that. Now, not every company provides it, as far as I know, but well worth having. I know some people who can do that for you, but yeah. Yes?
Okay, when you have an RRSP, I believe at a certain age, I think it's 71, you have to transfer to a RIF, and you are forced to take out a certain amount of money, withdraw every year. Now the idea of the tax-free savings account, now that came in where you can maybe just have that money transferred into this particular account where you're not penalized to withdraw, and that's why that came in. Is that correct?
The gentleman in the front is asking about the RRSPs, and when we have to RIF our RRSPs, and we are required to take out a certain percentage each year, and that percentage grows each year as well. And was the tax-free savings account invented to accept some of that money? I don't think that was specifically the purpose for the tax-free savings account, but it's an awesome strategy, and that's why I was saying earlier that even when you're retired, you know, sometimes we think, oh, I'm retired, I can't do anything, everything's set. Not so. Not so. If you have excess income from your RIF, the tax-free savings account is a perfect place to put it. You know, and you say you want to go on a special trip in 5 years and, you know, save up for that. Great way to do it.
Was it age 71 if that happens?
Yeah, they've changed it back and forth, but you have to, yeah. Yeah, yes?
If you switch it over like that, you still have to pay tax on what
Yes.
you're getting.
Yes. Lady's asking, when you switch it over, you still have to pay tax. Definitely, you have to pay tax on the RRIF income, but at least you can put it into the tax-free savings account, and the growth will stop being taxable at that point. Yes?
Yes. Is the TFSA better than an RRSP?
Is the TFSA better than an RRSP? There are a number of questions, and again, that is very specific to your personal situation. No is one answer, because the RRSP, it's before tax money going in. So you're deferring your tax for a long time when you're working. The tax-free savings account, that's after tax money. So you're saving on the growth portion only. So it's not deferral. Yes?
Can you talk about the strategy of paying down debt versus saving, and is there such a thing as good or bad debt?
Yes. The question at the front here, and I'll get to the back people too, sorry. The question at the front is about paying down debt and good debt and bad debt. Definitely there's good debt and bad debt. Good debt is the kind of debt that the item that you're using the debt for is going to last longer than the debt. That's good debt in one way. Also, if your debt is deductible, if you're buying something that's going to create income for you, then usually the debt is deductible, so that's a good thing. So it depends on the kind of debt you're talking about, whether to save or pay down the debt. Now, if you're able to put money into an RRSP and get some tax benefit back from that, and then use that refund to pay down your debt, then you're winning on both sides. But again, that's a very, typically that's a very individual answer. We look at the whole strategy, the whole portfolio, and make those decisions. Thank you for the question. Yes?
Could you please comment on reverse mortgages?
What would you like to know?
Well,
Reverse mortgages is the question here.
is it a good plan, do you think? I mean, I understand there are fees associated with it, so how do you determine whether it's a good plan in your situation and what would you consider?
The question is about reverse mortgages and whether it's a good plan and et cetera. I've never dealt with reverse mortgages myself, so I'm not an expert on that at all. But I do know that with reverse mortgages, you don't get a really high percentage of the value of your property, and yes, there are fees. And again, the answer to that is very, very specific to your personal situation. And I've seen situations where it made a lot of sense to do a reverse mortgage, and other situations where it made no sense at all. So again, very specific. But thank you for the question. That's a good topic. Yes?
I have a question about corporate class.
Yes?
And I just wondered, last March, when the markets were so down,
Yes.
transferring money into corporate class division,
Yes.
and then now moving them back to regular funds. Is a capital loss automatically triggered then?
If the loss happened within the...
Last March or April, when the markets had dropped.
Okay, when it dropped, then money went into corporate class?
No, the holdings were there,
Okay,
and then the market dropped.
yeah,
And then
okay.
it changed to corporate class.
Then it changed to
And then-
corporate.
Yeah, it just switched.
Yeah, okay. So the gains or the losses were already triggered outside of the corporate class, right?
I'm asking.
Yeah.
How
If
it works.
the value of the property went down and then it was transferred into corporate class, then that's actually a very good strategy, because you had the loss outside of corporate class. You can use those losses. In fact, you can carry following year's gains back to that loss. Okay, you can carry the loss forward. And then within the corporate class, then any appreciation won't be taxed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Okay. Yes?
I didn't, it's not a question. Excuse me. On your RIPs, the first $2,000 you take out each year is tax free.
Yes, that's right.
So
Yeah.
that,
The pension deduction.
that's right.
Yeah. So there's a tax benefit there. And I'm talking about the taxable portion of your pension income being 100% taxable.
Yeah, so if you
But
take
thanks for
$5,000
reminding me.
out,
Yeah.
$2,000 is free.
That's right. That's right. Thank you for bringing that up because I forgot to mention it. Excellent. There was somebody at the back. The man in the red.
The cash value of an insurance policy, are there any ways in which that can be used to generate income without surrendering the policy?
On a regular whole life policy? Not usually. Not usually. Mind you, there have been a lot of hybrid type of policies come out, but not usually. So you'd have to check your own policy. The question is whether the cash value of a regular whole life policy could be used for income. Again, you'd have to check your own policy and check with the person who provided it to you to see if they make allowance for that, but not usually. Unless there was excess savings in it above and beyond the amount that's used for paying the premiums now. Yes?
I don't know about the corporate class investment. Can you elaborate on that?
Corporate class that other people have been asking about too?
Yeah, I don't know what is that at all.
It's not an investment itself. It's not like owning shares or a mutual fund. It's simply the umbrella. The corporate class is the umbrella, the tax umbrella that the government says if you put your investments into a corporate class investment, then these are the tax rules around that.
And what is a corporate class investment?
What is a corporate class investment? As I'm saying, it's not a share or a mutual fund. It's like a basket of goods. In this basket called corporate class, you can put these investments, and the growth and the income will be taxed in this way.
So the government will determine which one will be the corporate class investment, or
No, you make a decision. You decide if you want to hold corporate class investments, then you open a corporate class the same way as you would open an RRSP or a tax-free savings account. It's like that. It's a tax.
For example, if I have some property, then I'll put that property under a company and it becomes a corporate class investment.
No. That's what this lady was asking earlier. No, you don't have to be a corporation. You can just be you personally. But it sounds to me like you have a specific question, so we could talk about that after if you'd like. Okay?
Is there a fee for corporate class?
I believe so, yes. Are there fees? Yes. Yeah.
Last few questions?
Yes?
In that tax-free savings account, is the amount that you can put in $5,000 every year?
Yes. Yes, and that 5,000 will be getting larger as well. Yes? You had a question, ma'am? No? Oh. Sir, yes?
Can one start a tax-free savings account for grandchildren?
It's a great idea. Yeah, it's a great idea. And I didn't bring it up, but with the registered education savings plans, I'm almost thinking that a tax-free savings account is a better option. Although the RRSPs have really opened up as to what the kids can do when they grow up as far as education, but I think the tax-free savings account is a really good option. Fewer strings attached.
Don't you have to be a certain...
I'm sorry, 18. Yeah, they have to be 18. Unless you could do it as a trust, though. Oh, did you just say that? But you could do it as a trust. Set up just a trust for the tax-free savings account for them.
Last
Yes.
question.
Oh. Yes?
these new instruments that have come in where you put a lump sum of money in and you get a guaranteed percentage back, I forget what they're called.
Yeah.
Are there any, if you're going to thinking of doing that, with your retirement, you have a lump sum retirement money and you put it in and you get a guaranteed income back, is there any pitfalls you should be careful of and watch for?
I was doing some studying on those a little while back, and I think when I first looked at them, the market was soaring, so the main issue with these, we're talking about, I can't remember the name of them, but where you put in, pardon?
Segregated funds.
No, it isn't segregated and it isn't an annuity, it's something else. But the issue with that is the fees. The fees are huge. Okay? So be careful when you're reading some of these things. If my forehead wrinkles up in the middle, that's my barometer that, I'm not really sure if this makes a lot of sense. So you could try that for yourself.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you for coming. Thank you.